A 10-year-old girl sat alone in the cafeteria, clutching her pink lunchbox like it held something precious. No one noticed, until the K9 patrol dog stopped in his tracks. He stared at that box, then growled, low, unmoving, refusing to walk away. By the time it fell open, revealing what had been slipped inside, the entire school was on lockdown, and the FBI had been called in. So what was hidden in that child's lunchbox? Before we reveal it, do comment below where in the world you're watching from. And if you enjoy real feeling animal stories like this, check out our other channel, where the heroes are cats instead of dogs. Make sure you're subscribed over there too. The link's in the pinned comment. The afternoon sun filtered through the tall windows of Crestview Elementary as Officer Rachel Ford adjusted her duty belt and checked her watch. 11:45 a.m., right on schedule for the lunch patrol that had become as routine as breathing over the past 2 years. The hallways buzzed with that particular energy that only elementary schools possess. A mixture of barely contained excitement and the sweet chaos of childhood. Beside her, Bishop sat in perfect formation, his black coat gleaming under the fluorescent lights. At 6 years old, this German Shepherd had the kind of presence that made both kids and adults feel safer just by being there. His amber eyes swept the corridor with professional calm, but Rachel could see the slight twitch in his ears that meant he was processing every sound, every scent, every detail that most humans would never notice. Rachel still remembered the day she'd first met Bishop at the Regional Canine Training Center 3 years ago. She'd been coming off a rough patch, a domestic violence case that had gone sideways, leaving her questioning whether she was cut out for patrol work. The department psychologist had suggested a change of pace, maybe something that would remind her why she'd become a police officer in the first place. "We've got this German Shepherd," Sergeant Martinez had told her, walking her through the kennels. "Brilliant detection work, perfect scores in obedience, but he's been through 2 handlers already. They say he's too analytical." Rachel had paused outside Bishop's kennel, watching the young dog sit with perfect posture, studying her with those intelligent amber eyes. He didn't bark or jump like the other dogs, just observed, as if he was deciding whether she was worth his time. "What do you mean, analytical?" she'd asked. "Most detection dogs alert immediately when they find their target," Martinez explained. "Bishop stops, processes, verifies, then alerts, makes him slower in training exercises, but potentially more accurate in real situations." Rachel had knelt in front of the kennel. "You take your time, don't you, boy? Nothing wrong with being thorough." That's when Bishop had approached the door, sat down directly in front of her, and simply waited, not begging for attention, not showing off, just making himself available for partnership. Their first few months had been challenging. Rachel was learning to read his signals, and Bishop was learning to trust that she wouldn't rush him through his work. The breakthrough came during a narcotics exercise when Bishop ignored the planted evidence and instead alerted on a trainer's backpack. Inside, they found prescription medication the man had forgotten to declare, medication that contained compounds similar to street drugs. He wasn't wrong, the head trainer had admitted. He was being thorough. From that point forward, Rachel gave Bishop the time he needed to process what his senses told him. Their certification scores improved dramatically, and their first real case together had sealed their reputation. A suspected drug dealer had been using a middle school as a drop point, hiding packages in the gymnasium's storage areas. While other K9 teams had swept the building multiple times with no results, Bishop had alerted on a seemingly innocent basketball that had been specially modified to contain narcotics. The arrest had made local headlines and established them as the team that found what others missed. When they were assigned to Crestview Elementary's community policing program, they quickly became the gold standard for school-based K9 teams. "Ready for lunch duty, partner?" Rachel asked, scratching behind his ears in that spot that always made his tail wag, exactly twice before he resumed his serious expression. They'd been assigned to Crestview through the district's new Safe Schools initiative, and honestly, Rachel couldn't have asked for a better placement. The kids adored Bishop. She'd lost count of how many crayon drawings depicted him. With oversized ears and superhero capes, teachers trusted him implicitly. Principal Sorrell had initially been skeptical about having a police presence in his elementary school, but that changed after Bishop helped locate a missing kindergartner during a field day event. Most importantly, nothing serious had ever happened here that required their specialized skills. Crestview Elementary was the kind of place where the biggest crisis might be a food fight in the cafeteria or a playground dispute over kickball rules. Still, they walked these halls twice a day, every day, just in case. As they approached the cafeteria, the familiar symphony of lunchtime welcomed them. The clatter of trays, the squeak of sneakers on waxed tile, and the cheerful chaos of 200 kids trying to eat and socialize simultaneously. The smell of today's menu, spaghetti with garlic bread, hung thick in the air, making Rachel's own stomach rumble. "Afternoon, Officer Ford," Mrs. Delaney called out, balancing a stack of laminated charts while somehow managing to eat a banana. The third-grade teacher had the kind of multitasking skills that never ceased to amaze Rachel. Bishop's looking particularly handsome today. "Don't let it go to his head," Rachel replied with a grin. "He's already convinced he's the most important employee here." Bishop's ears perked up at the mention of his name, but his attention remained focused on the cafeteria's entrance. This was work time, and he took his job seriously. They made their usual circuit around the cafeteria's perimeter, Rachel nodding to the lunch monitors and keeping an eye on the general flow of activity. Everything appeared normal. Kids trading fruit snacks, the inevitable spilled juice box creating a small commotion, the perpetual mystery of how a single French fry could end up on the ceiling. She paused to help a second grader whose chocolate milk had exploded all over his lunch tray. These were the moments she treasured most about this assignment, being part of these kids' daily lives in a way that wasn't about enforcement or authority, but simply about being there when they needed help. "Officer Ford," little Marcus said, looking up at her with chocolate milk on his chin. "Does Bishop ever get scared?" Rachel considered the question seriously. Marcus had been asking lots of questions about fear lately. His parents were going through a divorce, and his teacher had mentioned he'd been having anxiety about safety. "You know what, Marcus? Bishop gets cautious sometimes. That's different from scared. When he doesn't understand something, he stops and thinks about it carefully before deciding what to do. That's what makes him so good at his job." Marcus nodded solemnly. "Like when I get nervous about thunderstorms?" Exactly like that. Being careful isn't the same as being scared. It's being smart. That's when Rachel noticed her. Emily Barnes sat alone at the corner table, the same spot she'd claimed every day for the past month. At 10 years old, she was small for her age, with thick, dark hair that she had a habit of tucking behind her ears when she was nervous. Today, she clutched a pink metal lunchbox shaped like a retro television set, complete with cartoon decals and what looked like homemade glitter tape around the handle. Rachel had noticed Emily before. The girl was quiet, polite, but seemed to carry a weight that felt too heavy for someone her age. Her teacher had mentioned that Emily's mother was dealing with some health issues, and her father traveled frequently for work. Mrs. Rodriguez had pulled Rachel aside just last week, expressing concern about Emily's recent behavior changes. "She used to be one of my most talkative students," Mrs. Rodriguez had confided, "but lately she's been withdrawn, jumpy. When I ask her about home, she gives very short answers, and she's been protective of her belongings in a way that seems unusual for a 10-year-old. Rachel had made a mental note to keep an eye on Emily, but in the context of family stress, behavioral changes weren't uncommon. Now, watching the girl's nervous demeanor, those earlier observations took on new significance. But Emily wasn't eating. She was staring into her open lunchbox with an expression Rachel had seen before, the look of a child carrying a secret too big for her small shoulders. Her eyes kept darting around the cafeteria as if she was afraid someone might be watching her. Rachel might have continued their patrol if Bishop hadn't suddenly stopped dead in his tracks. The change was immediate and unmistakable. His relaxed stride shifted to rigid alertness, body angled toward Emily's table like a compass needle finding true north. His nose lifted slightly, testing the air with the kind of focused intensity Rachel had seen him display only during serious training exercises. "What is it, boy?" she asked quietly, following his gaze. Bishop didn't respond, with his usual glance of acknowledgement. Instead, his ears tilted forward, muscles tensing beneath his working vest. This wasn't casual interest in dropped food. This was something else entirely. Rachel scanned Emily's table more carefully. The girl had a juice box, half a sandwich, some apple slices being pushed around with a plastic fork. Nothing that should trigger Bishop's interest. But when Emily looked up and spotted them watching, she did something that immediately raised Rachel's suspicions. The girl quickly smiled and waved, too quickly, too forced, before immediately looking down. Then, with movements that seemed almost protective, she closed her lunchbox and pulled it closer to her chest. Rachel felt Bishop's tension through his leash, a subtle communication they'd developed over their 3 years together. He wanted to investigate, but he was waiting for her signal. "Let's keep moving," she murmured, not wanting to make Emily uncomfortable over what might be nothing at all. Bishop obeyed immediately, but Rachel caught him glancing back over his shoulder as they continued down the hallway. In all their time together, she'd learned to trust his instincts completely. Bishop didn't alert without reason, and he certainly didn't maintain interest in something unless it mattered. The rest of their patrol continued without incident, but Rachel found herself thinking about that moment. A dog doesn't pause for no reason, especially not a dog with Bishop's training and temperament. He was methodical, careful, and had never given her a false positive in 3 years of partnership. By the time they returned to the patrol office that afternoon, Rachel had almost convinced herself it was nothing. Almost. But as she filled out their daily report, she found herself adding a small note. K9 showed interest in student lunch area, no visible concerns, monitoring for pattern. She didn't know it then, but that pink lunchbox would soon turn their quiet school assignment into something that would reach all the way to the FBI's cybercrimes division. The next morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made everything feel sharper, more focused. Rachel arrived at Crestview at her usual time, 7:30 a.m., parking under the staff lot's one lopsided pine tree that had become her unofficial spot. Bishop emerged from the patrol car with his typical quiet dignity, allowing Rachel to adjust his working vest before they headed into the building. The early morning hours at an elementary school possessed a particular kind of peace. Classrooms stood ready but empty, hallways gleamed from the overnight cleaning, and the only sounds were the distant hum of heating systems and the occasional teacher setting up for the day. Rachel loved this time, the calm before the beautiful storm of childhood energy that would fill these spaces in just a few hours. This morning, Bishop seemed more alert than usual during their early patrol. His nose worked overtime as they moved through the building, and Rachel found herself paying closer attention to his reactions. As they passed the main office, Beverly, the school secretary, was just unlocking the door. "Morning, Officer Ford. You're here early today." "Just being thorough," Rachel replied. "Any overnight incidents I should know about?" "Nothing unusual, though Jake mentioned seeing some lights on in the building around 6:30 this morning. He thought maybe a teacher had come in early, but when he checked, nobody was there." Rachel made a mental note. "Which area?" "The 4th grade hallway." By 10:15, the morning energy had settled into the productive buzz of learning. 4th grade was lining up for their art period, and Rachel and Bishop were making their routine pass near the main stairwell when she spotted Emily Barnes again. The girl stood in line, but something about her posture immediately caught Rachel's attention. Emily was fidgeting with her backpack straps and cradling that same pink lunchbox against her side like it contained something precious and fragile. Her eyes kept darting around the hallway with the nervous energy of someone expecting trouble. As they approached the line of students, Rachel offered her usual friendly nod. But Bishop had other plans. He stopped so abruptly that Rachel nearly stumbled, his body going rigid with the kind of alertness she'd only seen during high-stakes training scenarios. Then, without any warning at all, he barked. The sound cut through the hallway like a gunshot. Not frantic or aggressive, but sharp, authoritative, purposeful. It was the kind of bark that made everyone within 50 feet freeze and look. Emily flinched so hard she nearly dropped her lunchbox, her face draining of color. The other students turned to stare, and Mrs. Patterson, the art teacher, spun around with wide eyes. "Bishop, quiet," Rachel commanded firmly, but her partner wasn't backing down. A low growl rumbled from deep in his chest. Not threatening, but absolutely certain about something. His eyes were locked on Emily's lunchbox with laser focus, and Rachel could feel the coiled tension in his muscles through the leash. Rachel's pulse quickened. In 3 years of working together, Bishop had never barked indoors during school hours. Not once. His control was legendary among the faculty, his discipline absolute. "I'm so sorry," Rachel said to Mrs. Patterson, who was looking between Bishop and Emily with growing concern. "I'm not sure what's gotten into him." But even as she spoke the words, Rachel's training kicked in. Bishop wasn't acting out. He was alerting. The difference was crucial, and every instinct honed through years of police work told her to pay attention. "Emily," Rachel said gently, crouching down to the girl's eye level, "would it be okay if I took a quick look at your lunchbox? Sometimes Bishop smells things that seem interesting to him." Emily's grip tightened on the metal box, her knuckles turning white. "I didn't do anything wrong," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I know you didn't," Rachel assured her, maintaining the calm, reassuring tone she'd perfected for dealing with frightened children. "You're not in any trouble at all. Bishop's just being curious." With obvious reluctance, Emily extended the lunchbox toward Rachel, her small hands shaking slightly. Rachel opened it carefully, aware that every student in the hallway was watching. Inside looked completely normal. A peanut butter and jelly sandwich cut into triangles, apple slices in a plastic bag, a juice box that was slightly warm from being out of the refrigerator, and a pack of chocolate chip cookies that were probably homemade. But when Rachel glanced at her partner, he was still growling, still locked onto the lunchbox with unwavering focus. She did a more thorough visual inspection, checked for loose wires, unusual smells, anything that might explain his behavior. Nothing. She closed the lunchbox gently and handed it back to Emily. "Everything looks fine," she said with a smile that felt forced. "Sorry about the scare, sweetie. Sometimes Bishop gets excited about nothing." Emily nodded quickly and hurried back into line, but Rachel caught the way she clutched the lunchbox even tighter than before. As the class moved toward the art room, Mrs. Patterson approached. "Is everything all right, Officer Ford? That was quite unusual behavior for Bishop." "I'm sure it's nothing," Rachel replied, but her mind was racing. This hadn't been excitement or curiosity. Bishop's body language had screamed alert, the same posture he adopted when he detected narcotics or explosives during training. But this was a fourth grader's lunch. Back in the patrol office, Rachel pulled up Bishop's training records and alert logs, searching for any pattern that might explain his reaction. Bishop had been cross-trained in electronic device detection, a specialization that was becoming increasingly important. He could detect cell phones, tablets, USB drives, even some types of surveillance equipment. The training was intensive, requiring dogs to distinguish between different types of electronic components based on their chemical signatures. Rachel remembered the specialized course they'd taken 6 months ago. The instructor, a former military canine handler, had emphasized that electronic detection was more art than science. "These dogs aren't just smelling plastic and metal," he'd explained. "They're detecting the specific chemical compounds in circuit boards, batteries, memory chips. Each device has its own signature, and the best dogs can differentiate between a harmless cell phone and something more sophisticated." Bishop had excelled in that training, showing an almost supernatural ability to locate hidden devices. During one exercise, he'd found a micro camera concealed inside what appeared to be an ordinary pen, a device so small and well hidden that even the instructors had been impressed. Could there be an electronic device in Emily's lunchbox that she didn't know about? But Rachel's visual inspection had been thorough. She found herself writing a more detailed incident report than usual. K9 exhibited strong alert behavior directed at students' lunch container, Visual inspection revealed no apparent contraband or safety concerns. Student appeared nervous and fearful, monitoring for additional incidents. As she saved the report, Bishop settled at her feet with a soft huff, but his ears remained perked, and his eyes kept drifting toward the door. It was as if he was listening for something, waiting for something. Rachel had learned to trust that waiting feeling. Monday morning couldn't come fast enough. The weekend had done nothing to ease the nagging sensation that something wasn't right. Rachel had spent the time reviewing Bishop's training materials and department protocols for unusual alert patterns. As they walked through the faculty parking lot, Bishop's behavior seemed normal, but Rachel noticed the subtle way his nose kept testing the air as they approached the building's entrance. Instead of heading straight to their usual patrol route, Rachel made a decision that would change everything. She led Bishop toward the row of student cubbies near the fourth grade hallway, where she knew Emily Barnes kept her things. The corridor was quiet, too early for students, with only a few teachers preparing their classrooms, and the distant sound of a janitor's floor buffer echoing from somewhere deeper in the building. Rachel stopped outside the fourth grade cubbies and unclipped Bishop's working leash. "Show me," she said quietly. Bishop moved forward with purpose, his nose working methodically along the row of small storage spaces. When he reached Emily's cubby, second row, left side, he stopped completely. Then he sat, the formal alert position, tail still, ears forward, eyes fixed on the pink lunchbox sitting on the shelf. Rachel's blood ran cold. Bishop only performed a full alert sit for two things: live narcotics and specific synthetic compounds used in explosive devices. Neither had any business being in an elementary school. Student's lunch. She made a note in her phone and stepped back, watching as Bishop maintained his position with unwavering focus. Whatever was in that lunchbox, her partner was telling her it was significant enough to risk his perfect track record on false alerts. When lunchtime arrived, Rachel and Bishop entered the cafeteria with heightened awareness. Bishop's behavior shifted the moment they crossed the threshold. His casual patrol stride became focused, purposeful. He made a direct line for Emily's table. Emily looked up as they approached, and Rachel saw something in the girl's eyes that hadn't been there before. Fear mixed with guilt, the expression of a child who knew she was carrying something she shouldn't have. "Hi, Emily," Rachel said, settling into the chair across from her. "How's your day going?" "Okay," Emily replied, but her voice was barely above a whisper. Bishop sat beside the table, his attention fixed on the unopened lunchbox. He wasn't growling or barking, just watching, with the kind of intensity that made Rachel's skin prickle. "Can I ask you something?" Rachel said gently. "Did someone help you pack your lunch today?" Emily's eyes darted away. "My mom was sick. She couldn't... it was already ready." "Already ready where?" "In my cubby, this morning, before school." Rachel felt pieces clicking into place. "Who put it there?" Emily's grip tightened on the lunchbox. "Dad's friend. He said it was special, that I should keep it safe." "What kind of special?" "He said..." Emily's voice dropped to almost nothing. "He said not to tell anyone. That it was a surprise game." The way she said special made Rachel's stomach turn. "What's your dad's friend's name?" "Uncle Mike. But he's not really my uncle. Dad just calls him that because they work together sometimes." Rachel pulled out her phone and opened the security app connected to the school's camera system. "Emily, I need you to stay right here with Bishop while I make a quick call, okay? You're not in trouble, but I need to check something." The girl nodded, looking relieved that someone was finally asking the right questions. Rachel stepped just outside the cafeteria and scrolled through the morning's security footage. There, 6:41 a.m., a man entering through the side faculty door. He moved with confidence, badge clearly visible. Heading directly toward the fourth grade hallway, she watched him pause at Emily's cubby, open it, and place the pink lunchbox inside, before walking away as casually as he'd arrived. The problem was she didn't recognize him. And after 2 years at Crestview, Rachel knew every staff member, every regular volunteer, every maintenance worker who had access to the building. Rachel zoomed in on his badge, enhancing the image as much as her phone's resolution would allow. It read M. Ellis, one of the substitute custodian passes that were used when the regular maintenance staff was unavailable. But when she cross-referenced it with the district personnel database through her secure app, there was no M. Ellis listed as an approved substitute. More troubling, the man's movements didn't match those of someone familiar with the building. He'd taken a slightly indirect route to the fourth grade hallway, pausing once as if checking room numbers. A regular custodian would have moved with the confidence of someone who knew the layout intimately. Rachel made screenshots of the footage and forwarded them to her supervisor with a priority flag. Something about this felt wrong in a way that went beyond simple procedural irregularities. Her phone buzzed with a text from the front office. "Officer Ford, please report to Principal Sorrell's office immediately. Bring Bishop." Something was very wrong. Principal Sorrell's office felt smaller with FBI agents in it. Agent Marla Singh sat across from his desk, her laptop open and displaying what Rachel now realized was connected to far more than a simple school security issue. "Officer Ford," Sorrell said, his voice tighter than she'd ever heard it. "These are Agent Singh and Agent Rhodes from the FBI's Cyber Crimes Division. They need to speak with you about Emily Barnes." Rachel shook hands, her mind spinning. "How did you know about Bishop's alerts? I only filed the incident reports this morning." "Because Emily Barnes' father, Jonathan Barnes, was reported missing by his employer 3 days ago," Agent Rhodes explained, opening a laptop on Principal Sorrell's desk. "And this morning, we received intelligence that suggests his disappearance might be connected to some missing classified materials." The laptop screen showed a photograph of a man in his 30s, with Emily's same dark hair and serious eyes. Beside it was what appeared to be an employment record from a company called Atlas Defense Systems. "Jonathan Barnes works as a cybersecurity consultant for defense contractors," Singh explained. "He has access to sensitive information that would be valuable to certain foreign interests. When he missed a scheduled check-in with his employer's security department, they contacted us." Agent Rhodes leaned forward. "Barnes was working on a classified project involving network security for military installations, the kind of information that could compromise national security if it fell into the wrong hands. His disappearance coincided with unusual activity on his work accounts. Someone had been accessing files they shouldn't have been accessing." "And his employer?" Rachel asked. "Atlas Defense Systems noticed the irregular access patterns during a routine security audit," Singh continued. "When they tried to contact Barnes for clarification, he didn't respond. That's when they discovered he'd missed 2 mandatory check-ins and hadn't been seen at his home office in 3 days. Rachel felt puzzle pieces clicking into place with sickening clarity. "And you think someone is using his daughter to move stolen information?" "We think someone has his daughter carrying something she doesn't understand," Rhodes corrected. "The question is what, and whether she's in immediate danger." Singh turned to Rachel. "We need to examine whatever your dog is alerting on. Can you retrieve Emily's lunchbox without causing a scene?" "She's in the cafeteria now," Rachel said. "But she told me she's supposed to wait before opening it. Someone's been giving her specific instructions." Rhodes and Singh exchanged a look that spoke of shared experience with cases like this one. "Then we need to move carefully," Singh said. "If Emily is being used as an unwitting courier, approaching this wrong could put her in danger." The plan they developed was simple. Rachel would return to the cafeteria and ask Emily to come with her to the nurse's office, claiming Bishop had detected something that might indicate she was coming down with a cold. As they walked back toward the cafeteria, Rachel's radio crackled with a message from Beverly in the front office. "Officer Ford, we have a visitor asking to speak with Emily Barnes. Says he's her uncle." Rachel's blood turned to ice. She grabbed her radio. "Negative. Do not let him near any students. Detain him in the front office." But when they reached the front office 2 minutes later, the man was gone. Beverly stood behind her desk looking confused and apologetic. "He said he had to take a call and stepped outside," she explained. "When I looked up from answering the phone, he was just Gone. Through the front windows, they could see the visitor parking lot was empty except for staff cars. He knew, Rhodes said grimly. Someone told him we were here. In the nurse's office, with the door closed and Agent Singh taking charge of the conversation, Emily finally revealed the full scope of what had been happening to her. Uncle Mike came to our house 3 nights ago, she said, her voice small and frightened. He said Daddy had to go away for work, but that he'd left something special for me to keep safe. He put it in my lunch and said, I couldn't tell anyone, not even teachers, because it was a secret game between me and Daddy. Singh knelt to Emily's level, her voice gentle but urgent. Emily, I need you to be very brave right now. Your daddy didn't leave anything for you. This man, Uncle Mike, he's not really your daddy's friend. We think he's someone bad who's trying to use you to move something dangerous. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Is Daddy okay? We're looking for him, Singh said honestly. But right now, the most important thing is that you're safe. And to keep you safe, we need to see what's in your lunchbox. With shaking hands, Emily opened the pink metal container. Inside, along with the sandwich and apple slices, was something that made Agent Singh curse under her breath. Nestled between the baggies of food was a small silver device wrapped in black electrical tape, a USB drive, professionally concealed and obviously not something a 10-year-old would pack with her lunch. Don't touch it, Singh warned, as the nurse reached toward the device. We don't know what kind of security measures it might have. Bishop sat perfectly still beside Emily's chair, his alert posture confirmed. He'd known. Somehow, through whatever mysterious combination of training and instinct, he detected an electronic device hidden in a child's lunch and refused to back down until the adults in charge took notice. Within an hour, Crestview Elementary was in controlled chaos. The school was placed on soft lockdown, with students and teachers told it was a precautionary drill while police investigated a minor security concern in the neighborhood. In Principal Sorrell's office, now transformed into a temporary command center, Agent Singh connected the USB drive to a specialized laptop designed to safely analyze potentially dangerous digital devices. Government-grade encryption, she announced, after several minutes of typing. This isn't something you buy at an office store. When the encryption finally broke, what appeared on the screen made Agent Rhodes whistle low under his breath. This is worse than we thought, Singh said, scrolling through the files. This isn't just about Jonathan Barnes. The screen displayed a comprehensive database of defense contractor personnel, including home addresses, family information, travel schedules, and security clearances. But more disturbing were the detailed profiles of their children, schools attended, daily routines, extracurricular activities, even photographs taken from social media accounts. They've been building targeting profiles, Rhodes realized, identifying families where the parents have security clearances and the children could be used as unwitting couriers. Singh scrolled through file after file, each one representing a potential target for recruitment, blackmail, or worse. The scope of the operation was staggering. Dozens of families across multiple states, all connected by their access to classified information. Here's another one, Singh pointed to an entry. Sarah Mitchell, age 8, father works for Lockheed Martin. And this one, twin boys, age 12, mother is a Navy intelligence analyst. There, Rhodes pointed to a familiar name. Jonathan Barnes, listed with a notation that he has a 10-year-old daughter who attends Crestview Elementary. The picture became clear with sickening precision. Jonathan Barnes hadn't willingly participated in stealing classified information. He'd been targeted, possibly kidnapped, and his daughter had been turned into an unwitting courier for the very intelligence that would help his captors identify their next victims. We need to find her father, Emily said from across the room, her 10-year-old voice cutting through the adult conversation with startling clarity. Uncle Mike said Daddy was working, but Daddy always calls me before bedtime. He hasn't called since Saturday. Singh closed the laptop and looked at Rhodes with an expression that communicated volumes. This wasn't just about recovering stolen data anymore. This was about finding a missing father and stopping what appeared to be a sophisticated intelligence operation that was using children as unwitting accomplices. Emily, who had been listening to the adult conversation with focused attention, spoke up again. Uncle Mike said if anyone found out about the special lunch, I should tell him right away. He gave me a phone number to call. Oh, every adult in the room turned to stare at her. Emily, Singh said carefully, do you still have that phone number? The girl nodded and pulled a small piece of paper from her pocket. On it, written in a child's careful handwriting, was a phone number with a local area code. That's our next move, Rhodes said. We trace this number and see where it leads us. Rachel's radio crackled with a message from dispatch. All units, be advised we have a report of a suspicious vehicle circling Crestview Elementary. Through the office window, Rachel could see an unmarked sedan making slow passes around the school's perimeter. The driver appeared to be using a phone, possibly photographing the federal vehicles in the parking lot. He's doing reconnaissance, Rhodes observed, trying to figure out how much we know. The sedan suddenly accelerated, disappearing around the corner before the responding patrol unit could intercept it. He knows, Singh said grimly, which means they'll be implementing whatever contingency plan they have for when operations go sideways. The investigation that began with Bishop's refusal to ignore a pink lunchbox would ultimately span 3 states and involve 2 federal agencies. Emily's father was found alive but hospitalized, held in a warehouse facility that doubled as a data processing center for stolen intelligence. The man calling himself Uncle Mike turned out to be part of a sophisticated network that specialized in targeting families with security clearances, using children as unwitting couriers to move stolen data without raising suspicion. The warehouse raid had revealed the scope of the operation: dozens of high-end computers processing stolen data, communications equipment for coordinating with overseas contacts, and, most disturbing of all, detailed surveillance files on elementary schools across the region. The network had been planning to expand their operation, potentially putting hundreds of children at risk. They were using kids as the perfect cover, Agent Singh explained during the debriefing. Who suspects a child carrying a lunchbox? Security cameras, metal detectors, even thorough searches rarely focus on children's belongings. It was almost foolproof. Almost, except for one German shepherd who trusted his nose more than human assumptions about what belonged and what didn't. But that afternoon, as the federal agents coordinated their expanding investigation, and Emily finally felt safe enough to eat her sandwich, Rachel knelt beside her partner and scratched behind his ears in that special spot that made his tail wag. "Good boy, Bishop," she whispered. "You protected her when nobody else knew she needed protecting." Bishop looked up at her with those intelligent amber eyes, then resumed his patient watch over Emily Barnes, as if to say that protecting children wasn't extraordinary. It was simply what good dogs did. A week later, as normal life returned to Crestview Elementary, and the last of the federal agents finished their work, Emily drew a picture that she gave to Rachel. It showed Bishop wearing a superhero cape, standing guard over a school full of smiling children. Rachel kept the drawing in her pocket as a reminder that sometimes the most important criminals were caught not because of brilliant detective work or advanced forensics, but because a good dog knew something didn't smell right and refused to be ignored until someone listened. Have you ever had a pet that seemed to sense danger before you could see it? That instinct that makes dogs invaluable partners in protecting our most vulnerable citizens, our children. Bishop's story reminds us that sometimes the biggest threats come hidden in the most innocent packages, and sometimes the best protection walks on 4 legs and communicates through trust and instinct rather than words. What would you have done if your child came home with something unexpected in their backpack? How do we teach our kids to recognize when adults are asking them to keep inappropriate secrets? If this story left you amazed by what our 4-legged officers can accomplish, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss another incredible canine story. Share this with anyone who needs to understand why funding for school safety programs isn't just important, it's essential. Check out our other canine hero stories appearing on your screen now. And remember, sometimes the biggest threats come in the smallest packages. And sometimes the best protection walks on four legs and trusts their nose more than any technology we've invented. We'll see you tomorrow with another story that proves why these partnerships between officers and their canine partners are among the most important relationships in law enforcement.